Hello and welcome to On the Clock, presented by Workstream. If you care about hiring and retaining hourly employees, you're in the right place. I'm Daniel Blazer, and today I'm clocking in with JP Lachance, CEO of Equator Coffees. Equator has 9 cafe locations in and around Marin County, California, in addition to a bustling direct-to-consumer business. We chat about Equator's groundbreaking history and how their commitment to a positive culture helps with their hiring and retention efforts. JP also discusses sustainability in hiring and the sourcing of ingredients and more. Enjoy! To get things, started, I'd love to hear about Equator Coffees and kind of what makes it different from other coffee companies.
So Equator was founded by our co-founders, Helen Russell and Brooke McDonald, in a garage in Corte Madera in 1995, which is just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. We've grown up over the last 28 years. We started in wholesale, and now we have 3 channels: wholesale, sort of retail coffee shops, and also a direct-to-consumer online business. We currently have 9 retail cafes open, over 400 wholesale partners, and we work with a lot of very cool and interesting chefs, including Thomas Keller at the French Laundry, Dominique Crenn, who's the first female 3 Michelin star chef in the U.S., Tyler Florence, Brandon Jew, Susan Feniger, and Mary Sue Milliken down in Los Angeles. So really great partners that we get to work with day in, day out. And I think what makes us a little bit different is we're not just selling coffee. We're really trying to use coffee as a vehicle to help improve the lives of everyone along our supply chain, from our farmers to our baristas. It's what we call our chain of well-being. And so we believe in using coffee as a force for good. And we believe if you drink good coffee, it will lead to good things, right? Because you'll be supporting these farmers, you'll be supporting these baristas, and we'll be able to have a bigger impact on more people. And so we sort of like to group our values around that. So we think, we believe in good coffee, we believe in kind people, and we believe in a better planet.
Let's kind of double click on the emphasis that Equator places on being socially and environmentally sustainable, because you kind of alluded to that a little bit, but I'd love to talk a little more. What is that, what does that look like, I guess, overall? And then what does that mean to you personally?
So the company really was founded on the basis of sustainability, and it's probably a longer story, but the short story is our founders were operating coffee bars in Oakland. And at that time, the importers wouldn't tell them anything about the beans. Brooke, our co-founder, wanted to know, who was the farmer growing the coffee? Were they being paid fairly? What were the conditions of the soil, of the shade trees? And at that time, there was really no transparency in the coffee industry. So Helen and Brooke decided, okay, we're going to sell these coffee bars. We're going to buy a roaster. We're going to roast our own coffee, so we actually know and have a relationship with the farmer that we're buying coffee from. So that's really how the company got started. And over the years, we always try to make more and more strides around sustainability. And then it was Maureen McHugh, our executive vice president, who really came up with the idea of sort of formalizing our commitment to sustainability with a B Corp certification. So the company pursued that. And so in 2011, we became the first coffee roaster in California to become B Corp certified. And that really, forces us to look at everything through a lens of what is this decision going to impact our employees, the environment, our community, and our bottom line. And so that's really our sort of guiding force. And it matters to me because I've been in different businesses over many years of my career, but I really want to work for a company that's contributing to solutions rather than causing problems. And so the B Corp mission, to use business as a force for good, that really resonates with me and really makes me excited to work for Equator.
That's really cool. And I mean, sounds like, as far as caring about supply chains and sourcing and everything like that, Equator really seems like it was kind of on the cutting edge, because all that stuff is, that's maybe more in public consciousness now, last few years, but I feel like, starting in the 90s and working on some of that stuff, that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely revolutionary for the time. And we probably, don't get a lot of credit for it just because, one, we started as a wholesaler, right? So we didn't have our own brand. And so people more know coffee when coffee brand has coffee shops and you experience it. So it took us a while until we actually started opening our own coffee shops. And also just our founders tend to be more, humble people. They're not sort of trumpeting things from the rooftops, but they really were sort of the OGs in the direct trade.
As you know, Workstream is all about hiring and retaining hourly workers. And I'd love to, kind of get your perspective on how you think Equator's dedication to social consciousness maybe influences your hiring and your retention efforts.
So, as a female LGBTQ founded company, I mean, our intention is always to create inclusive and welcoming spaces for all. So it starts there. It's all about kindness and respect. And then, as we, have always pursued that socially conscious, sustainable model, and then, pursued the B Corp certification, that really helps us attract applicants, particularly among millennials and Gen Z, as those generations care much more about the values of a brand or a company. And so, being sustainable, being a B Corp, it really helps us find like-minded people that want to support our mission and culture. And I think the other thing that has worked well for us as we look at hiring retention is trying to build that culture centered on kindness and respect. It makes people want to, again, join the company, stay with the company, work hard for the company. And we also have a philosophy of we want to teach our team everything we know, whether it's finance, marketing, HR, coffee roasting, right? So because we want them to be successful at Equator, and if they, at some point they leave Equator for whatever reason, we want them to be successful in their future endeavors. And so just having that philosophy and the way of treating people that really helps us attract and retain people.
I really love that idea of just trying to teach your team members all the different pieces of the business to help them become more valuable in the job market. Is that do you have kind of like a formal program or something, or is that just like something that everyone accepts and cares about, and so that just is a priority because of that?
Yeah, I think it's more informal, and we probably could do a better job of formalizing it. But it's just sort of an accepted culture that we built within the company. So you'll see a lot of people, come into retail as like a barista, and they'll enjoy that, but then they'll want to sort of go in a different direction in their coffee journey. And so then that leads some people to go into our roastery and becoming roasters and really digging deep into like, what does it mean to buy and roast excellent coffee, specialty coffee. We'll also see some people go from, retail or wholesale into more of a corporate function, whether that's HR or something else or vice versa. And so just having that freedom that, you're not locked into one position for your entire career. If you show interest and, initiative and hard work, we're willing to teach you new things.
I think I didn't think about this before, but I guess coffee it's a very unique industry because there are people that have a lot of passion for it, right? And so that is something where you can be the springboard to a lifelong career kind of in coffee, because that's something that, people spend their whole lives pursuing that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit probably similar to the wine industry, other things. There's just so many elements to it, but coffee even more so, because you not only do you have the whole agricultural side of like, growing it and what varietals and what are the right conditions to get the most out of, the coffee cherry, but then there's so many different ways to roast it, and then there's so many different brew methods, right? Pour over, espresso, etc. Right? So you can sort of go down a million rabbit holes in coffee. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked a little bit about sustainability, like literal sustainability, kind of how most people think about it. But I wanted to ask if you think that sustainability can apply to hiring, and if so, like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really sort of a higher level sustainability. I mean, there's maybe some nuts and bolts like doing online forms and not printing out paper, right? That's sustainable. But I think it's more about doing a better job up front, making the right hiring decisions, and doing a better job training and retaining employees. Because like any business, like every business wants to do that whether they're sustainable or not, because it's sort of a bottom line impact. Right? You reduce turnover and you reduce recruiting costs. But we really think about everything in our business of becoming more sustainable, whether it's roasting on like Marin roasters, which use 80% gas less per roast, right, or using compostable packaging in our cafes. But even hiring plays a role, because if we hire less people, we reduce that turnover and we reduce those costs, right? That makes the company more efficient. So we can then go buy more coffee. We can send more people to a training class. We can open another cafe and hire more people, right? So everything we can do to make the company more sustainable helps. And recruiting, as you know, is just a huge part of that, right? Because companies spend so much time and so much money trying to find the right people and retain them. And then if you lose them, then you got to start the cycle again. So I think there really is something to be said for approaching, hiring and retention with that sustainability mindset.
Yeah. Like you said, it's all, I think sustainability is like a concept, it applies different places, but a lot of it boils down to, like you just said, a longer term perspective, right? Rather than immediate results and, whatever is you're worried about today, it's, looking at a longer time horizon. So that makes sense. Any company that has employed hourly workers over the last few years, especially, there's been a lot of challenges that are kind of unprecedented when it comes to finding and retaining employees. Maybe can you talk to some of those challenges that you've seen that Equator has experienced? Just kind of talk about some of those challenges and maybe also what you've done to address them.
I mean, I think, hiring for all of our different teams, especially our retail cafe teams, has always been an issue just because the fact that we're, headquartered in the San Francisco Bay Area and the cost of living here is so high. So staffing's always been a huge challenge. But all those challenges just were immensely exacerbated by the pandemic, right? We just had a huge shortage of workers. People didn't want to work either because their health was impacted. They were worried about, the health of people they were living with or taking care of at home. There was a lot of people just, the great resignation, right? I'm not going to work in retail anymore. And so it was really, really tough for us. I mean, like everyone. So we went through a lot of challenges. So, we tried to, like everyone else, we tried to pivot and tackle it different ways. I mean, first and foremost, we really stepped up our recruiting efforts. And so one thing, we always would hire a couple seasonal college students, high school students every summer. But, it's always tough to do because you put a lot of training and then they not tend to stick around. But we really had no choice during the pandemic. So we had to really go in heavy on seasonal workers. And that was a short-term solve, but that created their own issues because then they go back to school and normally, okay, fall's coming, I have to hire a few people to make up for my seasonal workers. Like we had to hire wholesale and make up for those seasonal workers. So that was really, put a lot of stress on the organization. And the other thing we did was we just really had to step up our training efforts, both around what we call service, which is really technical skills, how do I make an espresso? What's the right temperature? How do I do latte art? And then also around hospitality, right? How do I build a relationship with the customer? How do I give them a memorable experience, and do it with kindness? So we had to do a lot more training because we didn't have the luxury of hiring someone who had been a barista before, right? We had sort of what we say, hire for kindness and teach them coffee.
As are kind of doing all of these things to address this, this unprecedented hiring environment, was there anything that surprised you, either because it worked and you didn't expect it to, or because it didn't work and you thought it would?
I mean, I think one of the things that worked was actually working with Workstream. We had to actually start doing that before the pandemic, right? Just trying to meet our employees where they were, and younger employees, are really, they're going to apply on their phone through text. They're not going to sit down at a desktop necessarily. So that proved to be a huge benefit to us as we got into the pandemic and everything moved online, everything moved remote. So having Workstream up and running, having our managers know how to, look for, reach out to candidates, see the candidates that were coming in, apply, get them onboarded, recruited. That really helped us out quite a bit.
Given your role and your experience, much of which we've discussed, what would you say is the most important piece of advice if someone wants to build a company that is especially attractive to the hourly workforce and make it really some company that they want to work at? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think it's really around building a strong culture because that's what's going to attract people. So it's going to allow you to develop people, retain people. And obviously there's a lot of different cultures that work for a lot of different companies, but what we've really found is that culture of respect, kindness, and transparency is really key. And it sort of seems to fit well with, the sort of workforce in the Bay Area, the workforce that's interested in the coffee industry. Employees want to feel good about the company they're supporting, that they're working hard for every day. They want to be in an environment that they enjoy. They want to work with people that, they enjoy and have similar values. And so, really, again, looking for that respect, kindness, transparency, that's really allowed us to really grow the company over the years.
What predictions would you have for the future of the hourly workforce and hiring? Do you think hiring is going to get a little bit easier, or what would you kind of guess?
Yeah, I think we'll continue to see it sort of ebb and flow. It has gotten a little easier, last year with the economy cooling off and sort of all the media talk about recession. I think that sort of helped a little bit. And then obviously in the last few months, unfortunately with all the layoffs in the Bay Area, that's also made people reconsider, okay, maybe the grass is not always greener, right? Maybe I've got a good opportunity where I'm at. But we believe it's going to continue to be our number one challenge. It's just, given the cost of living, staffing is going to continue to be our biggest priority.
What do you think about this? There's kind of been like a pay escalation, I guess. Do you think that will kind of continue?
I think so. I think just given the cost of living in the Bay Area and the impact we've all felt with inflation over the last 12 months, right? From eggs to gas to, you name the product, it's gone up. And so people need to, earn more to pay for all those products and rent and everything else. So I don't see it slowing down. And obviously, California has sort of been a leader with sort of minimum wage and raising that minimum wage every year. And we always pay above minimum wage. But it's going to continue, I believe, for quite a while.
Now we've kind of gotten your perspective on like what, a company can do to be attractive to hourly workers. But given your current position, like what would you recommend that leaders do? Like what could a leader that's listening to this, what could they start doing today that would help them be better prepared for, the future of whether it's managing hourly workers, or growing a business where that's your primary team are hourly workers? Like what advice would you give leaders?
Right. I mean, I think it's probably a lot of the sort of typical advice you hear, but it's important. It's like being humble, like realizing you don't know everything, right? So you have to, surround yourself with people who are, experts in their field or willing to become experts in their field. You have to talk to those people, listen to them, get their input, and really try and collaborate to make the best decisions possible for the company. And then I think it just goes to some of the things we've talked about, which is just, making sure your organization is set up for success, right? Like investing in more training to develop and retain team members, making sure you have easy ways, the right technology to recruit people, onboard people, right? Less friction in the process. And then you really have to, as we're talking about, like the wages are just going to keep going up. So you have to figure out how to make your business sustainable, right? So it's like, where else can we take costs out of the business without sacrificing quality? Right. And again, a lot of that's around sustainability measures, like, doing things to recycle, reduce, reuse, right? And then can you put those savings back into wages, because you're going to need that in order to, again, recruit, retain, develop people.
Thank you for listening to On the Clock. For more info, visit workstream.us/podcast. I've also included a link in the show notes to connect with JP on LinkedIn and order some of Equator's awesome coffee. Until next time, we're clocking out.